Yeah. Hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the DNS Working Group. My name is Willem Torop. Me and Doris Hauser, who isn't feeling too well at the moment, and Morris Müller, who couldn't make it in person, but he is with us in spirit and online, as you can see there on the screen, are the DNS Working Group chairs, and we will be chairing this session. Good to see you all. Last weekend, there was in this same hotel the DNS org workshop, the 43rd org workshop, with yet again, as usual, an excellent selection of outstanding DNS talks. So if you weren't there, then I can recommend you to use your search engine of choice and look for DNS org 43 and look at their program. Notably, they had two panel sessions. One about the recent series of resource depletion attacks that have been hampering the resolvers, with the researchers that found them as the panelists. It was very interesting. There was also talk about how to deal with those attacks in general and potentially also with future resource depletion attacks. That was on the Saturday, and on Sunday there was another panel session, also very interesting, about denial of service and hijack attacks. So I'm not sure when the videos will be online, but perhaps I can tell you later. Definitely worth checking out. So speaking of panel sessions, tomorrow from 6 to 7 in the main room, we will have a panel session comparing the resolver recommendations that have been developed here in the RIPE with the operational practice of some prominent resolvers. And in the panel will be Yuri de Ruiter representing the SURF resolver, which is the Dutch University's resolver. Dave Knight for Ultra DNS Public Resolver. Babak Farocki for Quad 9. And Andronikos Kyriakov for representing the DNS for EU resolver. And also in the panel will be Farzaneh Badai giving her insights from her research into DNS resolvers. And the whole session will be chaired by Shane Kerr. So it's similar to what we had last time in Krakow, but now with way more time, which is going to be really good. We have a very densely packed program, so I won't hold you up any longer. But there is first another exciting announcement to be made by Vesna. So Vesna, go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Vesna Manojlović, community builder for RIPE NCC, and I'm here representing a group of people who are organizing a DNS hackathon. You can reach us at this email address that then we will all read and reply. So our next event is in Stockholm in March. It's going to be during the weekend on the 15th and 16th of March. Because the week following that, on a Tuesday, there will be a NetNode meeting. So this hackathon is organized by 3 organizations: NetNode, who is hosting us, DNS.org, and RIPE NCC. We have published an article on RIPE Labs that describes all of this in a lot of detail. We are also helped by people from other organizations that are powerhouses of DNS. So we have, and I will just use their first names or nicknames, Arife, Liman, Samane, and Christian on the program committee. So they will be helping out in choosing the projects and later on giving the symbolic awards for the best teamwork or the craziest idea or the most completed project. And we also have the organizing committee of Johanna, Dinesh, and myself, who are working behind the scenes to arrange all the logistics. This is not our first hackathon. Already last year, we have organized a similar event together just before the RIPE meeting that happened in Rotterdam. And a long time ago, the RIPE NCC organized the DNS measurements hackathon, focusing mostly on the RIPE Atlas data. How many of you have been to the hackathon before? Can I see a show of hands? Okay, well, not even half. So let me explain very briefly in the last minute that I have here. When I say a hackathon, I mean people getting together to combine their creativity, coming from all the different sides of operating the internet. So both the network operators and the graphic designers, software developers and researchers, students, and the actual hackers. What I do not mean is breaking into other people's computers, so that the hackers have to reclaim the pride of that word and not be mistaken with the other usage of it. So the hackathons are very intense but very short, so most of the work actually happens outside of those 2 days. And for example, we have also published in the RIPE Labs a follow-up of one of the projects that lived through after the event was finished in Rotterdam. And also IETF is having their events every time before their meeting. So please register. Registration is already open, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Vesna.
Questions? I have 20 seconds left. No? Okay, you know where to find me.
Okay. The first speaker will be Raffaele Sommese from the University of Twente, who will be talking about DarkDNS, revisiting the value of rapid zone updates.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Raffaele Sommese from University of Twente, and today I'm going to present you this work that was accepted to this year edition of IMC. So I'm going to present also in Madrid next week. And this work is about revisiting the idea of almost 20 years ago of rapid zone updates introduced by VeriSign. So all of you probably in this room knows the program of ICANN called CZDS, Centralized Zone Data Service. This program was basically a program that ICANN introduced for zone sharing when they introduced the new GTLDs. And basically this program facilitated a lot of research from us, but also from the industry into DNS resilience, infrastructural analysis, and abuse prevention. But there is a problem with this program. It's just one snapshot a day. And if you do one snapshot a day, the main problem that you have with snapshot is that you take a picture, imagine always at the same time, always at the same day. These are two pictures that I took in San Diego. One was like on the Sunday at 6 p.m. and one was on Monday at 6 p.m. The only things that you can say here is that there was like different in cloudiness that in that 2 days, but they are mostly the same. So it's difficult to say that that night SpaceX launch happened. It was so transient that no one was able to perceive by just looking at the snapshot took at different days. So why we need more granular data? We need more granular data because we want to quickly detect newly registered domain names, for example, for DNS abuse detection, for trademark protection, and so on. We want to detect event of hijacking. A colleague of mine, Gautam, did like an intensive study of hijacking detection of governative domain on the DNS ecosystem. And we want, for example, to look at live DNS infrastructural changes to see how the DNS provider reacts in face of attack. And regarding newly registered domain names, I'm citing this quote of Paul Vixie that said that most of the newly registered domain names lives a very brutal life and very short life, because most of them die young and have like a really short life. And again, 20 years ago, this service was out there from VeriSign. Unfortunately, it was shut down because it was abused by mail spammers for sending like spam of email. Unfortunately, it was like something really, really useful also for the community for providing prevention against abuse. So what we are left with? Of course, there was like alternatives to this service, and one was using passive DNS data. One of the most famous feed of passive DNS data is one provided by Domain Tools in the X4 site security in the CNOT feed, newly observed domain feed. But it has some limitation. First of all, you have only active queried domain. That means that sometimes you are able to detect abuse only when the abuse already happened. It's a commercial data source, so it's limited availability for researchers. So what we are left with? Now, 1 year ago, we wrote this paper, and I presented also to the last RIPE in Rome, where we demonstrated that we can learn half of the second-level domains from TLD from CT-logs, using CT-logs data. And CT-logs data have a nice thing. They are live data. And in fact, we looked at the distribution of how quickly we detect newly registered domain names. And initially, we thought that we were detecting newly registered domain names in a day. But the truth was that we were detecting newly registered domain names in less than a day. So we developed this infrastructure to quickly discover newly registered domain name. The idea is pretty simple. We use the join between the domains that we can learn from certificate transparency log with the domain that we have from ICANN-CZDS, so the zone that we have from ICANN-CZDS. If something is not in ICANN-CZDS, but is in so in the zone of the .com, .net, and whatever, but is in the certificate transparency log, it's likely to be a newly registered domain name. So we do our DAP measurement, and we verify, and we do a lot of stuff like performing measurement every 10 minutes of these domains. And these are publicly available on the internet on this URL. So what we learn out of this? We learned that we are able to detect 42% of newly registered domain names before they appear, since it's a DS snapshot. That's around 1 domain per second, 76K domain per day. But the most interesting things that we learn is that 1% of these domains never shows up in CZDS snapshot. So 1% of these domains are so short-lived that they never make up to the next zone, the SpaceX launch that I showed you before. And how quickly we are in detecting these domain names? Well, the interesting thing is that we take less than 1 hour to detect like half of this domain. Within 45 minutes, we detect half of these new registered domain names, and 30% within first 15 minutes. Now, let's focus back on the part where I said that there are domains that shows up in these logs, but never shows up in CZDS. And it's 1%. So if you took, again, it's like 0.1 per second, 0.01 per second domains never shows up in CZDS. There are two main possible reasons for this. The first one is that certificate authority issues certificate for domains that are expired. This is possible, this is allowed. It's a security nightmare, but let's not talk about that. And the second one is that domain lasting less than a day, the SpaceX launch that I told you about. And we call these transient domains. We use AirDAP data to distinguish these two cases, and we found on 3 months period, 42,000 transient domains. These domains were completely invisible to researchers and to security operators so far, because they were deleted so quickly that no one was able to catch them. So we discovered that also that of these domains, half of them died within the first 6 hours of their existence. Again, they are really short-lived. And there are very few legitimate cases for why these domains should have this short lifespan. And the reason for early removal include, for example, abuse, credit card fraud, and so on. And also, block lists are not able to detect these domains. And we think that this is a missed opportunity for registry and registrar to share insight of which are the domains that are malicious and which are the domains that should be taken down by others if these try to evade. The interesting thing is that they are really look-alike long-lived domains. So basically, half of these are hosted on Cloudflare, and a third is hosted on Cloudflare CDN. And the thing that we asked also ourselves is that certificate transparency log provide like just a part of the visibility, but which is the complete visibility that how much of the visibility we miss. And we look at that, we compare it with the EPP transaction log from .nl, thanks to Moritz, and we look at that the domain, newly observed domain from domain tools to compare this feed that we have with these other two feeds. And the interesting thing is that in 3 months for .nl we find 334 domains that were registered and deleted, such as they never made to a zone snapshot. And with our methodology, we identify only 99. So it's 1/3. We are able to cover just 1/3. So we still have a huge blind spot, even using this data source. And comparing instead to domain tools, we said domain tools on average covers roughly 5% more of the domain names. However, the overlap between the data sources is just 60%. So our domains that are detected by our methodologies are not detected by passive DNS and vice versa. So you need both basically to get more visibility. What's next? So these domains, the existence of these domains represent a sort of measure of success of the fact that registry and registrar are able to tackle abuse. Before they can do damage, we don't know. So the problem here is that each registrar has to independently relearn the same signals to detect if a domain is a malicious domain or not. And in meantime, basically, all these domains activities are completely invisible to the researcher like us, because we don't have access to this kind of feed that are just inside a CCTLD or inside the registrar or inside the GTLDs. So our goal is trying to promote the resurrection of rapid zone updates, expanding beyond .com. The original goal of Rapid Zone Update was to promote security and stability by providing useful tool to online security companies, ISP, and stakeholders. We think that this is still true. And the fact that nowadays we have like uncoordinated action against abuse really calls for expanding transparency inside the DNS ecosystem. And from CZDS, we learned that there are ways to mitigate the risk of abuse by creating a system where just some people can access, where we can have like an approved system. And this is not just me calling for that. It's also the Security and Stability Committee of ICANN in the SAC 125 resolution, where they really call for a collaborative approach for fighting the problem of DNS abuse. So my call for you for today is help us to enable transparency inside DNS. We know that there are security and privacy concerns in sharing more frequent data, in sharing registration data, and we fully understand them. The problem here is that we need to create a sort of framework, a sort of consortium where we can share this kind of data, and we can really make the fight against abuse a collaborative approach where multiple stakeholders and multiple parties that goes from industry to academia can collaborate with each other, can share data with each other in a trusted and secured environment with different level of trust, with different level of data access. I don't say that everyone should have access to all the kind of data possible, but at least we can collaborate and we can finally fight better the problem of abuse and find better solution to identify abuse in the domain ecosystem. With this, I thank you for your attention. You can go on the website and play with our data and see the live stream of data flowing in. And if you want to reach us, this is the mail address of me and Casey that was mainly active on this work. And this is the QR code of the paper. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. You still have 4 minutes almost for questions, Raffaele. So if there are questions, Raffaele.
Michael Richardson. So I understood that the withdrawals, the 6-hour withdrawals, are because the registrars have figured out that it was an abusive thing. And do these domains, I guess you don't know, do they then show up through another registrar very quickly?
So sometimes it happens. It's not that frequent, but sometimes it happens. Of course, these are just 3 months of data, so I don't have like a longitudinal overview now to tell you this happens frequently. We will look into that in a more longitudinal fashion, but I think it's very likely. And the problem is that they try to evade also on other TLDs. So they, for example, register a domain on .com and they register a similar domain on .net and so on. So that's more difficult to catch because, of course, we need to you need a global view that lets you to monitor all the TLDs.
And the data sharing issues are privacy or commercial concerns?
That's a tough question. I will say both from some answer that I got. In the European Union, privacy is the most because, again, some people think that domain name are privacy identifiable information. For example, if you have your name and surname inside the domain name, that will be considered PII for GDPR. Some TLD, of course, use also the commercial advantage of knowing the list of domain names